Hi everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. Thank you guys so much for joining me. If you're new here, my name is Holly. I make food and fitness content, and if you're not new here, welcome back to the channel. So before I crack into today's video, the first thing I want to say is just a huge thank you for all of the well wishes and congratulations on last week's triathlon video. It felt like such a huge milestone to me, and it's just so fun that I get to share these things with you guys, and all of your support was just really kind. So I just want to say a massive thank you. But on reflection of completing such a big milestone in my personal fitness journey, I was kind of reflecting on how my whole journey has looked since really kind of delving into the fitness world, and I was like, oh my goodness, it's just changed so drastically. And then I was thinking, when was the last time I ever did like a kind of my fitness journey video? And it was 2 years ago. So I haven't done an update on kind of what my journey has looked like for 2 years, and when I tell you the amount that has drastically changed over those 2 years is wild. I haven't always kind of been like this, and I think I've really done a lot over the past 3 years to cement this as my lifestyle. Like, I would say for me now, working out, focusing on my wellness, running, like those are things that will forever be in my life, and I feel strange without them. I used to be in a phase where training once a week was very alien to me, and it wasn't even something that like I thought of doing, and if I did think of doing it, I absolutely hated the thought of doing it. And I think throughout this video, through talking through these 3 years, I can also share with you guys things that I did to really create a fitness and wellness lifestyle. There's going to be a lot of visual aids throughout this. I'm going to be basically showing you kind of lots of photos and videos throughout my fitness journey, because I know when I watch these sorts of videos, I hate when people just sit and say things. Like, I need the visual aids. So there will be a lot of visual aids throughout this. And in order to break this down, when I was writing it down and kind of going through what's happened every single year, I really realized that I've gone through 3 phases. So we're going to start with year 1. And this is the year that I would refer to as the calculated year. So the calculated phase had a huge catalyst for it. There is always a reason why you start a journey. There is always a why. My why at this point in time was we had just gone through the very first lockdown. I was in such a bad place mentally and physically. And I want to add, like, this has no reference to my body shape, how I looked, anything like that. Like, there was nothing wrong with my body. However, the level of fitness I had was literally on the floor. The level of strength I had in my body was literally on the floor. I had spent the whole lockdown sat on my bum eating and drinking, and I don't look back on that and think like, oh, what was I doing? I got through a hard time like everybody did by doing what made me happy in the moment, and that was eating and drinking and spending time with my ex-boyfriend at the time, and we loved to eat and drink because that was all there was to do. So that was basically how I spent my lockdown, and we came out of that lockdown, and I remember walking into town one day and just thinking like, oh my god, like this is difficult, like I'm struggling a little bit here. And I remember just feeling so unstrong and unfit in my body. We then were allowed to hang out with friends more, and I remember I was like hanging out with my friends, and I was like, I just am feeling so bad within myself. Like, I'm just not feeling good, and I need to do something about this, because I can't live my life feeling this way and resenting myself. So just for a little bit of reflection on kind of what my fitness journey looked like for that first year, I was in the gym 4 times a week, and I was on the Stairmaster at the end of every session, and I was also eating in a calorie deficit. And at this time I was also working with a personal trainer, because I knew nothing about fitness, I knew nothing about calories, I knew nothing about macros, I knew nothing about structuring a workout, and I was like, I think I need someone to kind of help guide me. And that is probably one of the best things that I did at the beginning of my fitness journey, was getting somebody to help me throughout that initial phase, because it can be so overwhelming. And I think where I used to trip up all the time and kind of jump on the bandwagon and fall off the bandwagon was because I just didn't really have any idea what I was doing. So giving someone else that power to kind of be like, right, just follow this plan, do this, and help you and give you tips and tricks is so helpful for that initial phase of your fitness journey. My main goals working with my PT were aesthetic. All I cared about at that time in my fitness journey for that whole year was being small and lean and seeing that number on the scale decline. If that number on the scale increased even by 0.01, my whole day was ruined. And that's kind of why I refer to this as like the calculated year, because everything was very numerical. That was all I was really focused on. It was focusing on making sure I was eating in a calorie deficit, making sure my waist measurement was going down, making sure the scale weight was going down. Those were my main focuses. And yeah, I was in the gym 4 times a week, but I wasn't training for strength. I was literally training to just lose weight. That was my sole focus at that time. That kind of initial phase was in August 2020. At the start of 2021, we then went into another lockdown. Now, I had already been in a calorie deficit for quite a long time. I was very lean and I struggle sometimes now to look back at my content of me in this phase, because I don't really resonate with it anymore. Like, I don't like to look at it. I don't resonate with it. I feel like you can see throughout every video how obsessed I was with being small and being lean, because number one, every video starts with a body check of me with my stomach out because I needed to look lean. I wanted to look small. And number two, I don't think I look healthy or happy. I think when I look at a lot of these photos and videos, I just feel like I look a bit drained, because I was eating in a calorie deficit, and it was a pretty hefty deficit at times. Now, we then went into that lockdown, like I just mentioned at the beginning of the year. I've been in a deficit. I was very lean at that point. Gyms shut because of this. Me and my PT had a conversation, and we had planned on reverse dieting, which is usually what you do after you've kind of successfully lost the weight that you want to lose. However, because of the fact that we weren't able to go to gyms, we both didn't really see the point of me reverse dieting, because I wasn't able to have access to a gyms to get kind of the results that I wanted in terms of potentially gaining some muscle. This then basically meant that I stayed in a calorie deficit for a pretty extraordinary amount of time. Now, at this point, my social media started to take off. So you can imagine, I am the leanest I've ever been. My social media is taking off. Social media is kind of going like this. Weight is going like this. And I am connecting the success between the both. So I am sat there thinking, people are watching what I'm doing because I'm lean. It's just not the case. I don't think any of you are really here because of the way my body looks. But at the time, I didn't know any differently, and that was the only thing I could connect between the two. And I think, again, like, that's maybe reflecting back on like a little bit of like low self-worth at that time, because I couldn't really understand why anyone would follow me besides the fact that I was lean. So you can kind of imagine, if you're basing your success on the way that you look, you are not going to want to potentially lose that. So that was, I think, where it got a little bit toxic for me. Like, I'm not gonna lie, and I don't think I've ever really spoken about this, but I definitely feel like there was a huge portion of my journey where I really was so scared to gain weight, or to not look the same way, or to not be small, because I felt like that was the reason I had a platform, which is just like, oh my god, I just want to go back and like not even like shake her, just like hug her and be like, no, like that is not the case. Like, you are so much more than your body size and your dress size. Please just like know that and remember that. But yeah, I didn't really know that at the time. So I think, again, like that was kind of what drove me to stay in that deficit for such a long time. And then lockdown ended, gyms opened back up, we start this reverse diet, and I'm not gonna lie, like I didn't really want that at the time, again, because of what I've just explained. I didn't really have a very good mindset with everything, and as well as that point, like I was extremely disciplined and extremely strict. Like, I was hitting those calories week in, week out. Like, I remember one time I was ticking on a calendar, and I had 2 months straight of hitting my calories every single day, hitting my workouts every single day. Like, I was regimented. Now, that was purely because we were in a lockdown. There was nothing else to do. I had nothing else to focus on besides my fitness journey. So being disciplined was fairly easy at that time, I would say, because I wasn't having any kind of like enticing plans to do. I wasn't having any dinners out on the weekend or in the week. Like, I was just solely focused on my fitness journey. Now, we come out of lockdown. I feel like the point where that lockdown ended and we started to be able to go out into the world and do things was when I really started to understand that actually the way I had been behaving wasn't sustainable and it wasn't balanced, because I was going out and I was having so much fun with my friends, and I was like, oh my god, I'm having the best time. And I was like, this is what life is. Life is not ticking the boxes every single day. And I started to incorporate my fitness around my plans and around my lifestyle. So lockdown finally lifting at that time was such a blessing for me, because yeah, it just really opened my eyes up to actually like having a life outside of fitness and outside of my journey. And I'm sure that there are so many of us that went through the exact same thing throughout lockdown. Like, we were just so fixated. But I did definitely find the balance, and I found ways to incorporate going out and having fun as well as still reaching my fitness goals. And I feel like if you go back through, especially my YouTube content, I do have a lot of videos on that, because it was such a prominent thing for me to be able to go out and have fun with my friends, but also still feel good within my fitness journey. Now, the thing that I find funny about this first year of my fitness journey was I was a weightlifter girly. I was a weightlifter girly, guys. I was in the gym 4 to 5 times a week, probably 5 times a week. That to me now is mind-blowing. However, I enjoyed it at the time. I think mainly I didn't know any different, and I kind of felt like if I wanted to have this fitness lifestyle, I had to go to the gym. So yeah, I was in the gym. I had like a push-pull lower body glutes split. Like that to me now sounds so alien. I'm just like, I just never in my wildest dreams ever go back to that. I don't think I was ever really like a heavy lifter, 1 rep max kind of girl. I don't really think my range of weights I was lifting ever dramatically increased. I'm pretty sure I got up to like an 80 kg deadlift. And my mind was blown. Towards the end of that year, I obviously had struck a little bit more balance. I had also learned so much from my PT, and that's why I think at that initial phase, kind of having someone or something to follow is really beneficial, because it just teaches you so much and gives you a really good plan and structure to follow. And I'd learned so much, and I felt like at that point I was like, okay, do you know what? I actually think I'm ready to kind of step away from personal training. I don't feel like there's much more for me to learn here. So after that first year, I did decide to leave my personal trainer and just kind of go out on my own into the wild. And then we move forward and we crack into phase 2, which is the phase that I refer to as the confidence phase. And I'm sure a lot of you would more refer to this as my running girly era. So this one kicked off in 2022. Now, the start of 2022, I just left my personal trainer. I was kind of going out, doing things by myself. I also actually started to eat a little bit more intuitively, which for me was a huge step. Putting the scales away, putting the food scales away, and actually not going on my fitness pal was a massive learning journey for me, and one I think everybody needs to do. I think if you've been tracking for a year or 2 years, you need to step away from it for a bit, because everything should be done in moderation. And that goes the same with like tracking, weighing yourself, doing measurements, all of those kind of things. I don't think it's healthy to be doing those things on repeat every single day, every single week, every single year. So at the beginning of this year, I kind of decided to like eat a little bit more intuitively, and I was still weight training, and I like loved this little phase for me. I feel like I was very relaxed. I was going out for a lot of meals. I was in a really good phase of, I built up the discipline from the first 2 years. So I was still going to the gym all the time. I was loosening the reins on my diet a little bit, which I definitely needed to do. And I then decided to have a boob job. So this was at the very beginning of 2022, and I had my breast augmentation. Now, this feels like something that I want to refer to in my fitness journey, because it definitely felt like a pretty big moment within this whole journey. I feel like, and I definitely didn't need to get my boobs done to say this, like this isn't me like justifying my boob job. This is just me saying, this is kind of when I had this realization. So I was weight training 4 or 5 times a week, and I remember 2 weeks before I had my breast augmentation, I was in the gym and I was like, oh my God, I just love training at the moment. Like I'm feeling really strong and I'm feeling really good, but I was just kind of unlocking this new enjoyment for working out that wasn't aesthetic. I was like, I'm feeling strong. Obviously, when you get a boob job, you're basically wiped out from exercising for quite a long time. I think it's 6 weeks of no exercise before you can start slowly integrating exercise back in. And I remember my last session before I had my boob job, and I was like, I am actually really gonna miss this. I had my breast augmentation, and while I couldn't work out, I missed it so badly because of the way I felt, not because of the way I looked. I purely realized the impact that working out and getting into the gym and lifting some weights and doing my Stairmaster sessions had on my mental health. And I really had a bit of a dip in my mental health over that period because I couldn't train, and I just missed it so much. And I feel like that is what clicked, that little thing that needed to be clicked to my brain that was like, actually, I love working out for the way it makes me feel, and I'm not even working out anymore for the way I look. And that was like this big moment in my brain, which is actually what led me to start the Strong Girl Society. You guys will know that that is basically the core value of the brand, is working out to be strong and feel strong, not to shrink yourself or be a smaller version of yourself. This is when running came into play, and I feel like a lot of you probably know me from my running journey. So I think a lot of people think that I have always been running, and I definitely haven't. And my running journey genuinely started because one day I was just like, looks nice outside, like I might go for a run. And I didn't go for a run. I actually completely ignored that thought. I let it pass and thought that was weird, won't be thinking about that again. And then very randomly, a couple of weeks later, the weather was really nice, and I was like, I'm gonna try and do a 5K, which can I just say is pretty bold for somebody that really did not do much cardio. Like the Stairmaster, in my personal opinion, doesn't truly help build up cardiovascular fitness, because I've been doing that, but I was not feeling physically fit. So I went out and I actually Ubered to the gym, because I was like, if I Uber to the gym, then I have to run back. And it was about 5K back. So I was like, I have no other way of getting back. Like I either walk or I run, and it's gonna be quicker to run. And I did this 5K, and it was the worst thing I have ever done. But it clicked again, something else in my brain. There's a lot of clicking going on this year. And I was like, that was so bad that I want to do it again until I find it easy. Now, I'm not going to do this portion of the video in serious detail because I do already have a very in detail video about my running journey and about how I went from not even running a 5K to running a marathon within the first year of running on my channel. So I will also link that just in case you want a more in-depth running video. But it started with the 5K. I very slowly but surely built my way up and I ended up completing a half marathon. I think it was like 3 months after even starting running. And the reason I refer to this as the confidence year is because I feel emotional when I talk about this, but running lit and gave me such a sense of self-confidence. I cannot even explain it. Like, going out and accomplishing the first ever 10K that I did, I was like, I can do anything. I've just done a 10K, which is something I never thought I'd be able to do. That inside of me just built up self-esteem, confidence. Like, I felt so capable of achieving anything that I put my mind to, which is basically what ignited my whole running journey and why I did my first half marathon and why I've run 2 marathons now, and now I'm heading towards my 3rd one, but we're jumping a little bit ahead. But throughout that running journey, it just helped me show up for myself so much. And this is the portion of the video where I'm going to tell you that running changed my life. That year of my fitness journey changed my whole entire life. It changed the trajectory of my life, which sounds a little bit dramatic, but it truly did. Like, running unlocked opportunities for me, running unlocked friends for me. It gave me the sense of self-belief and the sense of achievement that I've never really felt. And I feel like it's hard to feel that sense of achievement in your adult life through work, through comparison to other people. But when you complete a run, you have to be proud of yourself because you are the only person that's put those trainers on, that's got yourself out the door, that has completed that. Like, nobody has helped you, nobody's pushed you, nobody's dragged you. You have done that with your own 2 feet. So to not be proud of yourself is almost nearly impossible when you're running. That year I just built up such incredible confidence in myself and what I was truly capable of. This kind of beginning phase of my running journey was a little bit like all over the place. I didn't have much of a structure. I didn't have much of a plan. I just kind of picked up running very randomly. My dad, he is a big runner, so he was basically coaching / helping me to get to my first ever half marathon. And alongside that, I was kind of weight training, but I kind of dipped in and dipped out, and I wasn't really understanding like the balance of having both. So I was either kind of doing a week where I would do a bit more weight training and then the next week I would run more. Like, I didn't really understand how the both could complement or intertwine with each other. So this year was definitely me finding my footing with running and kind of getting into a really good routine of it. And I would say that is what I basically spent the year doing, was training for that half marathon got me into the routine of running 3 times a week. After my first ever half marathon, I actually pretty immediately signed up to do the Paris Marathon the following April. Now, a little bit crazy from me, but it is kind of the pipeline. You do a half and then you kind of realize that, again, you are capable of doing something you didn't think you could ever do. So then you're like, okay, well, what can I do next? And it kind of is like, well, maybe I'll just do a marathon. And that was what I decided to do. I took the leap. I signed up with my dad. So yeah, my running journey continued. I did, again, pick up another personal trainer at this time. This was because, like I mentioned to you guys, I had no idea how to navigate running and weight training, but I know that I wanted to do both because I was still enjoying elements of my weight training, but I just wanted to have somebody to help me structure my marathon training because I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. I had no idea how I should be fueling myself. So I did start working with Lucy Davis, who is my really, really good friend, and she trained and prepped me for the Paris Marathon, which was the hardest thing. But that first ever marathon training block, like, if you are completing your first marathon training block, I am green-eyed with jealousy. I will remember training for that marathon for the rest of my life because it's just like the unknown is the best. Like, you are waking up in the morning and you're going to run a 30-kilometer run, like, and then you're achieving that. And like, I don't even know how to explain it, but like, training for that marathon, training for Paris Marathon was one of the best things I've ever done. Like, it was hard, don't get me wrong. I'm not sat here like it's all smiles. It was so hard. I had runs that I couldn't complete. I had days where I was so exhausted, I was like crying, but I did it. I showed up for myself. I did it, and I ran a freaking marathon. Now, post running the Paris Marathon, I feel like my running journey has always seemed very consistent, and for the most part it has been, but I will be completely honest with you, I really struggled after the marathon with post-marathon blues. I had just dedicated months to training for this race. I had completed it, and then I just felt like I had nothing to strive towards, which is very common. So I'm not going to say it sounds silly, because it doesn't, because it's so common amongst runners. You complete something so huge and so ginormous in your life that afterwards you just feel a bit lost, because you've just dedicated so much time and energy into this goal and you've achieved it, and it's like, okay, well now what? I think I also took a little bit of time to fall back in love with running. I think coming off the back of the marathon and trying to go out and run, like it didn't really feel like it was clicking the same as it was. And again, this is very, very common post-marathon. So yeah, it took me about 2 months to really fall back into a flow with running, but it did eventually click and fall back into place. And that was when I got invited to go and run the New York City Marathon, which was just so mind-blowing. Can you believe though, when I got that invite, I wasn't gonna do it. I think I had like 12 weeks to train for the marathon, and my previous training block has been 16 weeks, which I feel like is a great amount of time to train for a marathon. And I remember I called my dad and I was like, I don't think I can do it. Like, I don't think I'm going to be able to run it. Like, I don't feel confident in my ability. And my dad was like, you cannot pass this opportunity up. Like, you get ready, basically. And I was like, okay, yeah, like I've got this. Like, I will just get, like, I'm gonna do anything. And thank goodness I made that decision, because running the New York City Marathon again is just, I feel like every marathon is gonna be a core memory. Like, I don't feel like I'm ever gonna run one and be like, oh, I just ran a marathon. But that whole process of training for that, the whole experience of being in New York with Strava was just so incredible. And like, again, makes me a little bit teary to think about. And you know what the best part about running the second marathon was I was so emotionally prepared for the afterwards from running Paris that I didn't have the same issues. I'd learned so much from that post-marathon kind of like rut, and I took my learnings and I went and I actually managed to still run very consistently, and I didn't really fall out of love with running. And that is for one main reason, because I didn't try and go out and do crazy distances afterwards. I reeled it back in. I did very, very short distances for about a month until I built my distance back up. That is one of the biggest learnings that I've taken from running marathons, is that after that marathon, you just need to really reel it back for a little bit of time. You need to almost, even if you want to push, don't let yourself, just like keep it inside and store up that energy. Like, if you're out and you're doing a 5K and you're like, I think I could do a 10K, save that energy. And then when the time is right, you can go out and you can do all those things, but you just need to like store up the itch, essentially. I also feel like when I trained for that marathon, that was when we developed the Strong Girl Society running guides, and I learned so much through working with Sophia to develop those guides, and I follow those guides. And I feel like at that point, I really found the perfect running and workout split. So I was doing 2 full body days a week, and I was doing 3 running sessions a week, and that just is the perfect amount. Like, if you are getting into running, getting into weightlifting, doing that mixture of sessions is just perfect. So I feel like I just had the best training block in the world. I feel like I had the best marathon in the world, despite it being so hard. New York is so hilly, but I just finished it and I just felt great. And I feel like I really settled back in nicely after that. And then I just did some fun runs for the rest of the year, because that was November. Like I said, I feel like my fitness journey has looked very different from year 1 up to now. And this year, my fitness journey has looked more different than I ever could have imagined. Number 1, started the year with an injury, which, can I be honest, and this is gonna sound so bizarre, I feel like, I don't wanna say I needed that injury, that sounds weird. I feel like experiencing an injury was a lesson that I needed to learn. That's the best way to phrase that. I did 2 sessions at the start of the year, and then I got runner's knee. I then ran on runner's knee for 2 weeks before it then sent massive problems through to one of my hips and basically knocked me out of running for, I think I wasn't running really properly for probably about 2 months across my move to LA. Now, the reason I say that I learned lessons from that is because that injury taught me so much in terms of, number 1, if you feel injured, take time off, because all you're going to do is make the injury worse, prolong your healing, and basically just put yourself in a really awful place, which is exactly what I did. The other lesson I learned was that stretching and mobility is more important than you could ever imagine. And actually, if you're wanting your body to perform and do these things, you need to help it to do those things. Like, your body needs fuel, it needs rest, it needs recovery, it needs hydration, it needs all of those things. And I feel like being injured really taught me that. I also feel like it really helped me build up that itch that I was talking about earlier. When you can't go and do your long distance runs, it built up such an itch in me. And I feel like, again, it kind of made me feel so grateful for what I had been able to do, that I was like, okay, well, when I am recovered and when I'm not injured, like, I am gonna come back and I'm gonna go for it. And trust me, I have been going for it. So that was the very beginning portion of this year. This year I've already done, I think, how many half marathons have I done? I think I've run 3, I think 2 races. I did hyrox in New York. I did my first ever triathlon. I went to the pool for swimming sessions. I bought a bike and now I cycle. And I feel like the reason I refer to this year as like the year of capability is because this year, having built up the confidence from the confidence phase of my journey, I now feel like this year I'm just like, well, what else am I capable of? Because I never dreamt that I would be able to do 2 marathons. I never dreamt I would ever do a triathlon. And I just feel like I've just really been showing off myself and pushing myself and again, proving exactly what I'm capable of. And that's why like this year just looks so different to that very like first year of training. And I feel like I've learned so much, and I feel like just talking through all of this, I'm like, oh my goodness, like I've learned so much and so much through each phase of my journey. And I'm gonna show you guys these now because I was reflecting on this the other day. If you look at my grid, this is from phase 1. I just feel like it looks a little bit grey and a little bit sad. If you look at phase 2, which I'll put here, I feel like we're getting some colour. She's looking happy, she's thriving, she's building her confidence. And then phase 3, where I am now, on this side, I feel like I can see that I'm trying to assess my capability through this. And this year, I genuinely feel like the sky is the limit. And I want you guys to feel that as well. Like I really want to express that through my content and through me trying these things. I want you to see that actually, like I wasn't born as an athlete. I wasn't born with this natural like athletic ability. And it's not even about being super athletic and doing these things. It's just about showing up for yourself and committing to something and following through with it. And not necessarily doing it to be the best at it, but just doing it to be the best version of yourself. And I even feel like the goals that I'm setting for myself are things that me in year 1 would have been like, number 1, why would you want to do that? But number 2, like you can't do that. But going through that phase of running and building my confidence and achieving things has just really shown to me that I am so much more capable than I think I am, and you are also so much more capable than you think you are. Yeah, that is the 3 phases. We had the calculated phase where I felt like everything felt super numerical, super number focused, and then we hit the confidence phase where I grew in confidence, I started running, and then we now have the capable phase, which I feel like is one that I will probably be in for a fairly long amount of time. I really hope that if you're watching this, you have also resonated with that mindset shift. And if you are still struggling, like there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Like I was super weight loss focused and it felt very consuming at times, but I did manage to shift out of that mindset and I learned how to balance everything a lot better. And kind of in the phase I am now where I feel strong in my body, like the strongest I've ever felt, and I feel so genuinely like happy and proud and strong, and I never thought I would get to this phase. And I've achieved that through finding forms of working out that I absolutely love and fueling my body in the right way, but also living my life outside of everything as well, and not being extremely disciplined and extremely regimented, because life is for living. And as fun as these fitness goals are, they're not your whole life and they shouldn't be your whole life. But I hope you guys have enjoyed this reflection over the past 3 years, and I can't wait to maybe do this in another 2 or 3 years and just see how much it's changed. Maybe by that point as well I would have done my half Ironman, which would be really cool. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next Sunday.